Welcome to a lake house relaxing edition of the Man Trek podcast. It's not been so relaxing getting to this point, though.
It's like chaos. It's so funny. You think with the mobile equipment being what it is, that the podcast would not be that difficult, but setting it up, the microphones were fighting me, and then, of course, the kids are having meltdowns and all this stuff.
Your microphone is slow. So it's just been kind of a trial to get to this point to record. The location is beautiful, and it has nothing to do with the location at all. It's just, technical difficulties.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we've been fighting. Like, the microphones are like, they don't want to clip onto the table the way they're supposed to, just like logistically, and then the tech didn't want to work. It was not recognizing my microphone. It was finding yours, no problem, and we were getting weird signals, and then, just the normal chaos of life on top of all of that. So it's been an hour or so that we've been trying to get this to work, but we're here, and now let's do the thing that the podcast is supposed to do, which is just relax and tell goofy stories. Are you ready to approach the news desk?
I am.
What do you got?
So my first story is a sign war between North Carolina eateries spreads to dozens of other businesses.
I'm so excited to hear this story.
So, so a sassy exchange of words on the signs outside two North Carolina restaurants has now become a full-blown sign war.
Oh, the restaurant signs.
Yep.
I was imagining houses. Okay, restaurant. I like it.
No,
I like
restaurant signs. So it's now a full-blown sign war with dozens of businesses chiming in. So apparently the tussle began when a grill called Ione's, I don't know how to say it, Ione's Grill and Bar, left a message reading, "Happy birthday, Jeff," on its marquee for nearly a month. A neighboring eatery, Dank Burrito, fired off the opening shot by making its sign read, "Ione's, quit being lazy, change your sign."
Wow.
The owner fired back, changing the sign to, "Dank, we are not lazy, just busier than you."
Ooh, I like that.
Dank Burrito, not to be outdone, responded, "Y'all just look busy because it takes 2 hours for a $1 taco."
Jeez, nice. I'm loving it.
"I've seen tons of people stop and take pictures of our signs," Dank Burrito's owner told the TV station. More neighboring businesses joined the fray. Prime Bistro changed its sign to read, "Boys, do we need to have a meeting?" A sign at EJW Outdoors expressed a similar sentiment. "Guys, do we need to talk about it?" I think there are over 70 businesses that have chimed in since.
Where is this?
In North Carolina.
I want to move to North Carolina. People know how to have some fun. Like, this is good.
Local residents have been keeping track of the sign war by creating a Facebook group.
Yes.
I have no idea. It's interesting. Like, I thought it would fizzle out, and people are still posting and getting traction, the owner says. Both owners say they have no intention of surrendering. "We're going to keep going as long as we can."
I mean, a Chamber of Commerce couldn't pay to have this good of publicity for their town. You know what I mean?
Gosh.
Like, this is great. And so creative. Like, what a fun thing. And it doesn't seem to be, like, aggressive, just kind of jabbing, little friendly. To me, it seems like fun, friendly competition. Like, I love we're not lazy, just busier than you.
Yep.
That's such a good line. Oh, man.
Yep. I thought it was clever. So.
Shots fired. I love it.
Yep. So.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, just a fun little, and nothing mean, just
friendly.
No,
not too mean, just a little.
Sassy.
Well, yes, there you go. Sassy. I like sassy. Because sassy banter is perfect. Like, that's wonderful. That's what you want to see. And it would make driving around that town so much more interesting. Because now suddenly...
See if any of the signs are related to the...
look at them over there. They're getting in on it too. 70 different businesses.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Man, that's excellent. I love it. Let's see. Okay, so in a legal battle over emotional support parrots, a woman wins $165,000. And actually, she won a lot more than that. I mean, she got some crazy money for her emotional support parrots. So Meryl Lesser faced eviction from her New York City co-op as neighbors complained about the noise from her apartment where she kept 3 parrots.
Wow.
So she had been living there for a long time. She had been living with emotional support parrots for years when in 2015 the neighbors began to complain. A year later, they tried to evict her. She'd been there for 20 years.
Wow.
Living there with these birds. But then they start trying to evict her. Her 3 parrots, whose names are Layla, Ginger, and Curtis, they moved out. They got kicked out by the co-op. But that led to a years-long legal battle, which concluded this month when the co-op agreed to pay her $165,000 in damages and $585,000 for her apartment to resolve the issue. So basically, they paid for her living and $165,000 in damages. So she did pretty well out of all of that. In a statement, Damian Williams, U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, described the agreement as, quote, the largest recovery the Department of Justice has ever obtained for a person with disabilities whose housing provider denied them their right to have an assistant animal.
Wow.
Now, I got to pause for a second. I get a little... How do you feel about emotional support animals? Does it feel like cheating? Like it just doesn't. It's not the same as an assistant animal, like a seeing eye dog. That's a physically I can't see, and I need the dog to be able to see.
I'm not saying that emotional support is not healthy and important. I'm really, but like. This makes me come off as so mean.
I know. I feel like such a grump to be like, I don't know about emotional support animals. Like maybe for little kids.
It's like the guy who was like, this alligator's my emotional support animal. I'm sorry.
Yeah, remember Wally, the emotional support alligator?
Why? I just think it's...
well, and I think that's the joke a little bit. It's like, okay, so this animal is important to you. That's fine. But to give it a legal status, an untouchable legal status, like those are parrots. Those birds are not doing her anything other than
they actually can't return that emotional support.
No, they're there for her. They and I'm not saying animals can't be affectionate, but they're not. You know what I mean? They're not children, and they're not. They make you happy, but that is not, I think, a grounds to. So I guess I feel bad. I don't think that they should have kicked her out. You can be upset with your neighbor and disagree, but kicking them out because they have loud parrots doesn't. Especially if it was an animal-free apartment zone or something, but she's been there for 20 years.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I think the way I would handle it is I would just be like, you know what? If this is a big enough problem, when my lease is up to renew, I just won't renew. I'll move somewhere else. I will move. If that person has been there for that long, I'm not going to get my undies in a bundle and be like, you need to leave. It's just, you know what? I'll just leave.
I just don't think assistant animal and emotional support animal are identical. And maybe that's callous of me. I know some people really struggle with emotional support, but I just think I'm like, that's not the same thing, you know? And so, and then they did mention she's disabled, but they didn't go into any kind of specifics. So it's possible she wasn't able to move. Like maybe she's low income, she wasn't working or something. Maybe she's not able to move. But all the more reason, I'm more upset about her losing her home. The birds don't seem that doesn't matter to me. You know, like it's like, no, it's not the emotional support animal that's the big deal. The getting evicted part, that's not cool, but yeah, the lady declined to comment. Emotional support animals and the places they can go, from airports to schools, have been subject of scrutiny and legal challenges in recent years. In 2021, the federal government narrowed its definition of service animals, effectively excluding emotional support animals from those allowed in the U.S. air carriers.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I totally agree with that. I'm like, look, these are not the same. And they just did it for airplanes. They're like, look, you can't bring your emotional support animal on an airplane. And we're
a lot of places have done that. Like,
well, because it feels like a loophole. There is a legitimate assistant animal, like I need this animal to get around, and then there is I want him because he makes me feel better, and it's like, that's fine, but then you can't come in my restaurant or whatever. I remember there was a buddy who has a church that I know about, and he had a person in his congregation who had a puppy they wanted to bring in, and they're not training it to be a seeing eye dog or anything like that, but it's like their emotional support puppy. But the dog barks throughout the whole service, including through the sermon. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I'm not going to throw you out. I'm not going to throw a puppy out. But at the same time, this is a worship place, and it's not, you're not training. Like, I understand if you're training, because we've done that in our churches of like, hey, this is a dog that's being trained. It's wearing the little jacket. Please don't pet. And, you know, coming up for...
People get mad about their kids doing that, and kids can be trained. Like, they can be taught that's not okay. But, like,
this
a
is
dog?
bad. This is not
Come
bad.
on, man.
Yeah.
And leave it at home.
It's like you're in a worship service. You could leave the puppy for a little bit. I don't know. I feel like it was a loophole. And again, I feel a little heartless coming into this, but like Lesser, this woman who has anxiety and depression, she moved into the place in 1999. The birds, quote, soothe and comfort her, making her feel safe and helping her stay calm during debilitating panic attacks. The building had no process for evaluating residents' requests to live with emotional support animals.
That's
so there was,
in the 90s, yeah.
Yeah, so for 16 years, her neighbors never complained about the noise from the parents ever.
Yeah.
Then she got the third parrot, and I guess suddenly it was a problem. And so then she started getting the complaints for a couple of years, and then legal battles, and then, yeah, she gets evicted. So, I don't know. On the one hand, I think her struggle is very real, and I feel strongly for her, but I don't think it's an assistant animal, and I don't think that gives her this, like, bulletproof vest of you can't touch me, this is my emotional support. On the other hand, she'd been there for 16 years. A little bit, you just have to deal with it. You can't just suddenly change your mind. Oh no, I don't want my neighbor to have a pet, and then get him evicted. Like, that's not cool. So I'm not really on anyone's side in this. I'm not a big fan of emotional support animals beyond the cute. It's like, oh, that's a cute thing. But now it's like, no, this is my, like, this
is necessary.
Ironclad legal defense, and you owe me hundreds of thousands of dollars. On the other hand, these neighbors shouldn't have done what they did because she had been there for so long. If it was, this new person moved in with these animals and we have a problem with it from the start, that's one thing. But no, I have all these parrots and they're super important to me for 16 years and nobody had a problem. I think you're stuck.
Yeah.
I don't know. Interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah. All right. What else you got?
All right. So, insurance company Nationwide announced the finalists for this year's Hambone Award. We talked about the Hambone Awards last year.
The Hambone Awards.
So this celebrates the most unusual pet insurance claims of the year. Remember, the Hambone Award is named in honor of a dog who ate an entire holiday ham while stuck in a refrigerator. And it aims to shed light on everyday and sometimes bizarre incidents that can befall our beloved pets.
I love it.
So the finalists this year include Archie, a New Jersey dog who injured his paws when he broke through a plate glass door while trying to alert his family of the mail carrier. Bear, a Pennsylvania corgi who bit into a bottle of nail adhesive and effectively glued his mouth shut.
Oh no,
poor
Bear,
dog.
poor puppy.
A New Jersey parrot named Clover, who made the list after a growth spurt caused toenails on her feet to hook together.
Wait, a growth spurt? Did she? Oh. Okay.
A Florida dog named Irma, who suffered from gastrointestinal issues that turned out to have been the result of eating metal wire pieces from a barbecue brush.
She ate them? Oh, dogs will eat anything, even if it's the worst for them.
A Virginia dog named Gordon, who swallowed large rocks from her owner's garden.
I can understand the wire metal brush pieces because it's like, oh, those fell down and the dog snapped them up. But you can't even have rocks in your yard now because the dog might eat them.
Rounding out the finalist is Lambo, a North Carolina dog who ate more than 250 jigsaw puzzle pieces. I would be so annoyed. I'm trying to work on my puzzle and I'm like, why can't I find those dang pieces? And then every single puzzle I do, where'd the dang pieces go? And then I start observing my dog's poop and finding out, there it is.
It's a 1,000-piece puzzle and there's a good quarter of it missing.
Ooh, that looks like a real hamburger. I think I'll eat that.
I can't find the sunset. Where's the corner of Cinderella's castle?
Who the heck is from North Carolina and thinks they have the right to name their dog Lambo?
Oh. It's true. That is the wrong.
I mean, if you're from Wisconsin, maybe.
Maybe they moved there from Wisconsin.
They're
like, this is our one little connection. 250. It's probably not even that much carb, you know what I mean? But it's like little, just come over and I'll just steal a piece here.
Oh my god.
Eat them up.
So funny.
Oh my gosh. That's hilarious. The toenail one is just bizarre to me.
So it says that the pets nominated have made full recoveries. It says the winner will be announced on the 27th. That was 2 days ago. So I should look up to see who the winner was.
Yes, let's find out.
When you're doing the next story, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Julius Benson, the vice president of the pet health and chief veterinary officer for Nationwide, said, "We applaud we applaud pets and their parents and continue to focus on supporting them as they provide pets with the care they need."
Excellent.
It's just so funny.
It's funny. I remember this problem when we brought this up the last time. On the one hand, it's very funny because these animals all made full recoveries. However, it is a little bit like they're all bad stories. It's all like animals getting hurt.
I know. It's like, if you think about it a little bit too much, you're like, oh, that's sad. That poor dog ate metal and suffered awful GI. I mean,
it's gonna tear up
their
your tummy.
intestines.
Yeah, that's not good for your little belly. No, that would hurt. Eating all kinds of goofy stuff. My favorite probably is still the original Hambone, like getting stuck in a fridge and then I gotta survive, so I'll just eat everything that's in here.
Oh, it's just crazy. So anyways, what's your next story?
All right. So this one, it has layers to it. Chicago. So this is warnings of a lunch lady. All right. Chicago area school worker stole chicken wings during the pandemic. Gets sentenced to 9 years in prison. So first of all, this woman's name is Vera Lydell. Vera Lydell. She's 68 years old, which is like, so this is like a retirement gig for her. She stole $1.5 million worth of chicken fingers from the school cafeteria.
Oh my God. How did they quantify that? How do they know?
So this is pandemic. And if you don't remember, there was a whole bunch of aid that went out.
Yeah.
And schools were buying up extra food to send home to kids.
Yeah.
And so she just
capitalized on it to the local elementary schools. We were getting free lunches.
Yeah, because they gave it to everyone. They were like, these are free for everyone, because the government was just pouring out money. And the oversight on it was very low.
Yes.
And so they ordered. She's part of the ordering. And so here, let me read. A former food service director at a schools district in Chicago area has been sentenced to 9 years in prison after admitting she stole stole the chicken wings. She was the director role of Harvey School District 152 in Chicago. She's incarcerated at Cook County Jail. She stole the mounds of meat intending to be take-home meals for students who were learning remotely during the COVID-19 pandemic. So they ordered extra food, and she just took the whole pallet. And she did this multiple times throughout the pandemic.
Wow.
She took the food. So her job involved placing orders with Gordon Food Services, a main supplier for the school district, according to ABC News. She placed the orders and did the billing, but kept the chicken wings between July 2020 and February 2022. So it's almost 2 years worth of chicken wings.
Where the heck do you store a pallet worth of chicken wings?
I don't know what you do with it. So she ordered more than 11,000 cases of chicken wings from the food provider.
The chicken wings would outlast her. How long does she think she's going to be eating chicken wings for?
I like chicken wings, but I'm not going to eat that much. So she picked up the orders at the district in a district cargo van. So she used their stuff to pick it up. The massive fraud began at the height of the COVID, during a time when students were not allowed to be physically present in the school. Even though the children were learning remotely, the school district continued to provide meals for the students that their families could pick up. The chicken theft operation was discovered in 2023 when an audit found that the food service department exceeded the annual budget by $300,000 halfway through the school year.
Wow.
They're like, wait, you've spent a lot more on the food than the food that we have used. Where did that go?
Wow.
The business manager for the district then found the invoices for the chicken wings, which was odd because it was a food item that wouldn't be served to students because they contain bones. So it's the wrong type of food.
Wow. So it wasn't even a believable thing for them to give to students.
Not long term. No. Yeah. Once you take a closer look. And that's why we audit books, because that's how you find out somebody did something.
That's crazy.
Isn't that amazing? The lady.
Wow.
You always wonder, the person who does the ordering.
Imagine everybody looking at each other and, what are you in here for? What are you in here for? I stole millions of dollars worth of chicken wings.
Well, and it's one of those things where the world was shut down and they had all these insane restrictions, and it was so crazy for a little while, and they were just pouring out money left and right. And now, years later, we're starting to find that there was so much fraud, so many companies that I was telling you that story of the one university that got in trouble because they counted their employees the wrong way, and they're like, we have less than 500 employees. And so the government audited it and said, no, there was a $7 million loan that they lost. And it's as we sort of sift through the chaos and audit and clean up the books, because in the moment you really need to be able to do a fire hose of food and supplies to people, and you need to kind of open up all the doors and green light, turn all the lights to green to get emergency services stuff.
Yep.
But then afterwards you kind of have to go back and be like, okay, where's the paper trail? How did we actually do in helping people, and how much did we waste and get stolen? And one lady took advantage of that. My question, and it's not in the article, but was, how was she flipping these chicken wings? Where's the pawn shop for 11,000 cases of chicken wings?
I just can't wrap my mind around.
Was she selling them to restaurants? I mean, how was she getting a profit off of that? Or she didn't eat all of that, right? What did this woman do with all that chicken?
I have so many questions.
I thought that was so funny. I was like, $1.5 million worth of chicken. Basically, $500,000 a year for 3 years. of chicken
Wow.
that she did something with. She bought and then picked up the chicken, and then they don't tell us what she did with it. And it's like, I'm assuming she sold it in some way, because that's how you get the money. I can't steal the money from you, but I can buy stuff with your money and then
pawn it off,
sell it,
Yeah.
and get.
Has to, Ben.
Interesting though, right?
Okay, so I follow up on the Hambone Awards.
Yes, please.
So the winner of the Hambone Award this year is Luca, a German Shepherd, in Massachusetts. So what happened is he completely tore out a kitchen cupboard.
Oh.
So apparently they were doing a renovation in their kitchen, and the dog was like fighting going in his crate, and she had to run an errand. So she let the dog stay out of the crate while she was gone. No. And the German Shepherd tore out the kitchen cabinet to get to the trash can that was inside.
Oh,
because it was like one of those door cabinets.
Yep.
And so they were in the middle of remodeling, so they hadn't completely finished everything yet. So the dog just tore out the whole cabinet. I look up the stairs and I see the cabinet door and the track are on the stairs. And then I keep going and I find everything dismantled. Trash bags torn and littered across the floor. Trash over my entire kitchen. And the cabinet is flung about the dining room.
Wow.
And so just the dog destroyed the kitchen cabinet to get to the trash because it wanted what was inside.
So does the insurance pay for the damage to the dog?
The insurance covered. So the dog, they had to take the dog to the vet to make sure it didn't eat anything dangerous. So it just covered any issues the dog might be having with.
They didn't fix the renovation.
No,
or
apparently
the
what the reason was, like, they found things in the trash that the dog could have eaten that would have been harmful to it. So they were like, what if the dog ate this? We don't know. So they had to take the dog to the vet. They had to get the dog's stomach pumped or whatever and make sure that it was okay. The dog was okay, but they now only ever crate their dog.
Interesting.
So anyway, it was just it was horrifying. Like, she walked in and saw that her kitchen had been torn apart, but the dog was okay. Dog survived. Saw the vet, and Nationwide helped cover the veterinary bills, is what it said.
Good for you, Nationwide. Thank you. What's their tagline?
Nationwide is on your side.
Ooh, we should get money from them.
Yeah. Let's do it in harmony now. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Someday when this podcast takes off, we're gonna get sponsorship, and then we'll do
shot. You're positive, I guess.
Sir, we're not paying you for that ad read. Why not?
Sounds great. We don't want you. Who's sponsoring your life, JJ?
Yeah, let's go.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, let's see what's sponsoring my life today. You know what? I in general, we've been working hard. It's been a busy summer over at the church, getting used to a new church and new family, and seeing old friends as they come to visit or we go visit them or whatever. But finally, we've had this week a vacation, and I was thinking about it. I was like, this might be the longest vacation we've taken in years. Like, we've done a lot of little trips. Like, we've done like
little 2-3 day
3 days here, 5 days there, but we really don't take a ton of vacation. It's hard with little kids to do anything. But the way this is set up, we've gone to my parents' place. They have a new place up north, and it's on a lake, and it's just us at their house.
Yeah.
But we're the only ones here, and it has just been so peaceful and so restful, and it's just been so wonderful just to hang out with my kids.
It is nice.
So I'm just gonna say, like, vacation with family, and not even a destination, but just time to be with family. And another thing that I'm very happy that I did was the morning we left, I took all the social media off my phone. I just deleted it all. So I've done 0 social media stuff. I should have taken my emails off my phone as well, because that keeps going off and my brain keeps like, oh, I got to respond to this email. And it's like, stop doing that, but it has been so much less with the technology and phones, and just tons of time with the kids.
It has been good. We've been reading books. We've been playing games. We've been fishing. We've been doing all the stuff. So it has been very nice. Yeah,
we had a bonfire outside. It was just, so that has been definitely sponsoring my life this week.
Nice.
As we record this podcast from the lake house.
The lake house. Yeah, I think for me, it was a rainy day yesterday, but going to Mackinac was fun with the kids. It's always fun to go get fudge, and they had a blast looking for rocks, even though it was so windy, and it was just spitting rainy, like foggy, drizzly, gross. But honestly, I don't think anybody complained after the initial, it's a little cold. It was like, well, we're wearing pants, we're wearing sweatshirts, we're wearing shoes. Let's hunker down and hang out.
And we went out, and once we got to the beach, they were like, it's cold, let's not do this. And then once we got to the beach, it was like, go look for rocks. And they all 4 of the boys were just
love looking for rocks.
along.
And honestly, it is kind of fun.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you just kind of bend over and you just start looking for rocks. And it's like, Liam's like goal is I gotta find a Petoskey stone. So it's like that's the cherished prize. He still has not found one.
I didn't find one.
No. So someday. But it was fun. It was a good day. Bumming around.
Beautiful. Yeah, so. It was so fun. It was windy and cold a little bit, but it was just fun. And then we go to the fudge place, and the guy was like cutting fudge, and he gave him little samples. I mean, it was just that was an all around very good day.
Sponsoring our lives. Good stuff.
Very good stuff. All right, so let's talk a little bit about... Okay, so from Christianity Today, Sophia Lee wrote an article called Confessions of a Loner. And it was a fascinating sort of dive into the development of community in her life. And then she went and interviewed other people and saw how some of these things work. And so she was talking about how the pandemic... So it sounds like actually her life is very similar to ours in terms of... she's in a similar life stage. She's recently married. They have 2 kids, I think, now.
Okay.
And raising kids in the pandemic and church and small groups and life groups and all that kind of thing. But one of the things that happened was when they had their first kid, it was during the pandemic, and she wasn't wanting it. She declined the meal train. Right? She was like, oh, no, that's okay. They offered. Her church was like...
Actually, that was the one thing I really liked about the pandemic was the meal train.
Oh, the meal train was
so
amazing.
Easy.
But for her, it was like, no, I've got this comfortable little world. I don't want people intruding in on it. We're fine. No, thank you. And and during the pandemic, sounds like they really isolated and they built up this really kind of comfortable world of me-ness. Everything is in my world and my convenience. And then after the pandemic, she found it really challenging even to meet up with friends. It's like, and the will just wasn't there,
Yeah.
And so she went down to Texas to interview some guy. I'm not sure how they connected, but she went down to see their community life. And this was a small group of people. It's kind of like a life group that had been together for decades.
Oh, okay.
And so they were like college best friends, and they would all get together and they were in each other's lives. They would do meals together multiple times a week. They would be, they spend roughly 12 to 15 hours in each other's lives every week. So it's Sunday morning church, maybe Wednesday night church, Thursday night gathering, and then they'd like go to sports games for their kids and stuff. Like they were always in each other's lives. And he and his wife and their kids, at one point he got a job in the Pacific Northwest. So he moved from Texas up to Seattle area. And for 4 years they tried to create this community, but they just couldn't get that whatever magic sauce right. And so then they eventually, once the opportunity came up, they moved back to Texas and just stepped right back into their community because they had such an incredible community of like 15 people or whatever it was for their group.
That's
so
cool.
She went down and interviewed them, and she had the sense of like, okay, but is this how you do it? Because it's like, it's college buddies who didn't move away. And her story was, I went to college and had very close friendships in college, but then we all scattered. We moved around the country, back home for many of us. And I was like, that sounds very similar to my story. I had a great group of friends in college, like very close people that we spent like every waking moment together. We went to meals together. We went to classes together. We hung out together. And then since graduation, we've really all just drifted away. We started families and moved home to different places. And I'm trying to think of the friend group that I had in college. Through social media, I'm still connected to them, but I haven't seen them in face-to-face, in years for most of them. Some of them I've seen a couple months ago, but like... yeah, it's been a long time. And so it was a fascinating article, and I definitely recommend it because she goes practical.
That's so interesting.
So then she describes, so I said her story is similar to mine, and it resonates a little bit. But part of her story, so this woman's name is Sophia, and she got married to a guy named David, but they were married right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Okay.
So we'd been married for a few years before that. We had already had 2 kids by then, and we were on our 3rd kid.
We were having our 3rd kid in the
pandemic. Right, so we were a little farther along, but the pandemic, so I think it had a more outsized influence on them. I think I remember telling you this when I first read the article, because I was so shocked. Her marriage ceremony was just her husband,
you
and
told
the
me about
priest or pastor in their backyard with their in-laws joining them on Zoom, which is pretty heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But they got married in early April 2020, which
so
was
that's
the
like,
height of like everybody was still on board. I know it like fractured eventually, like with masks and stuff, but there was about a month there where everyone was doing everything, and then there were people started digging in their heels. But at first it was like everybody did all the things, and so that's when they got married. And so they just had this little bubble that was just them, and it created these kind of strange relational dynamic for their early years of their marriage. And so they felt very isolated, but she liked it at first. She was free from all the drama and birthday parties and baby showers. My plans could resolve, I'm reading now, my plans revolved around my interest and my convenience. Slowly, gradually, the outside world returned. Our church met physically. Skipping down, navigating 58 minutes of freeways to meet a friend suddenly felt draining and unnecessary. Was it really worth all that effort when we could just text or call? And it like shaped her brain around like, no, just do everything digitally. Why would I spend all that time in the car to go meet someone? And so then she was talking about when her husband's mom died, and they went to go stay with her husband's dad, and the church that they were a part of did a meal train, and they declined it. They were like, no, we're fine. And it was, well, they watched them accept it. They wanted to decline, but Dad said, no, go ahead and let them bring. And it gives people not just, it's like the meal train isn't the point. The point of the meal train is to give people an excuse to come into your space. Right? They're looking for a reason to be invited over so they can express condolences. They show that they love you, you know? So then what's nice about this article is that she's telling her story, but using her own story and her own struggles to tell a bigger story about the needs of humanity for community, right? Like we all need community, and she's pointing at that by pointing at her own personal struggles. And so motherhood was a big thing for her when they got pregnant with their first son, who they named Tov, which is very cute, which means good in Hebrew.
That's cute.
Yeah, right, little boy Tov. But what happened was that, she postpartum was kind of rough for her, so she very much isolated. And it says 9 months passed until one Sunday at church when I exited the nursing room and lifted my head from the fog of motherhood, and I saw only unfamiliar faces. So at her own church. Now, the church had changed. They're from LA, which is a transient city. People move around a lot. But she said, my oblivion wasn't due solely to motherhood. It was formed by months and months of seeking only what felt convenient and comfortable. And so she did this thing where she, just sort of isolated. It's like, in a perfectly reasonable life change, getting married or having kids, there's lots of reasons to kind of just build yourself a nice little bubble. But what happened was she suddenly felt very alone in a church she'd been attending for years. Like,
that's interesting.
At that point, you could know everyone and people could be very invested in your life. But if you've bubbled the whole time, attending that church regularly doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be known.
It's hard to open yourself up and be vulnerable, especially in a church community where the people are not already family or you're like necessarily tied to. And I get it, because that's my default too, is to like pull back and be like, nope, I'm going to keep people at arm's reach. I don't want people super close. But
it's funny because I think a lot of times people think that community is about going out and getting into people's lives and getting in, like meeting people and being very extroverted. But I think also the other side of it is allowing people
into your lives.
Like we really build a wall where we don't let people come close, and that like you have to let people into your story, and that can be really challenging for a lot of people. She talks about she was a part of a discipleship group, but because of conflicting schedules, they met once, maybe every 6 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, right. That's not very often. She says, we should meet up sometime. Became such a common lie that we said it as glibly as a passing greeting.
Oh boy.
It's like small talk. We should catch up sometime.
Really,
and neither of you believes it, right? Like,
oh, that's never happening.
To be too busy for community is simply to prioritize things other than community.
Yeah.
What would our life look like now that we had made different choices, like accepting a meal train? Because she talked about when they got married, no meal train, but then when her father or mother-in-law died, watching them accept a meal train, but then when they had a baby, they did not accept the meal train. And I just think meal train's a decent example.
It is.
It's just a simple version of very obvious. It's not to say that it's all about meal trains. It's like, no, it's just one example. So then she met with this guy who wrote a book. A man named Denton, who happened to live really close. He wrote a book about loneliness and Christian community. And so she met with him, they had coffee, and she talked about a lot of challenging things. But then they made some goals, and this is what I wanted to sort of finish with. So first, these are the changes that she made to her life to be more intentional about community. First, I called some close friends and penciled in monthly dates to hang out. If I didn't have some sort of structured schedule, I knew we would only see each other maybe once or twice a year. Second, her husband and I made a list of family values, and at the top, Sunday is sacred. It is no longer an hour of church, then errands, then chilling in front of the TV. Sunday is going to be reserved for our church family, even if that means ruling out certain extracurricular activities for our son, Tove. So, and I noticed she says church family, not personal family. Like, we're going to be in each other's lives, maybe Sunday night. We're going to be around at friend's house and that kind of stuff. Third, we decided to find a church that was closer to us. We couldn't see ourselves forming consistent community in a faraway church with the rhythms of fellowship and our family couldn't partake in. When we were out of sight, we were out of mind. So they went and found a new church because they were driving like 45 minutes to church. And actually, I have people I know in my life who used to commute really far to our church. And every time I think about inviting them to a life group, it was like, yeah, but you probably don't want to come all the way down for that, you know? And so I never included them. I would try. I'd say, hey, and they're like, it's just too far. We can't make it. And it's like, yeah, that's part of why you got to find a church that's close because you need to be able to be there more often than just Sunday morning, you know?
That's fair. Yeah.
So anyways, that was like
very
the breakdown of the article, but thoughts
like
on all that.
I agree. It's hard because we don't seek to be intentionally in community with people. We really do. And it's a problem that I struggle with a lot. Like, hospitality is not just, hosting people. It's like allowing them to be a part of your life. Like, that's tough because like we like to put up walls and we like to put up barriers and we don't like people meddling in our lives. And it's like, yeah, but Christ calls us to be in community with one another. Like, that's a big important part of being a Christian is being hospitable to others, and not just other Christians either, like other people in general, but especially living in community with Christians. Like, that's important. That's key. And so I think it's really hard because like that's not my default and it's an area that I'm still working on a lot, but like I feel like everybody does need to be intentional about it because otherwise we hole up in our lives and we live in our bubble and we say, nope, I want my every evening to be my time to binge Netflix and sit on my phone, and I don't want to be uncomfortable. I just want to be comfortable. And if I have to get together with other people, then I have to live on their schedule, and that means I have to, go to somewhere that I don't really want to go to, and I'm not going to be able to sit at home in my sweats. I have to do other stuff, and it's like that's really hard because it requires not being selfish.
Well, and I think that it's kind of you invest your life in certain things and you get certain returns on that. If you invest your life into the things you want, your personal hobbies or desires, you get really good at enjoying the things you like. And that for some people is enough. But if you invest in the people around you, in your community, the return on that is so much better. To be loved. There was a talk about when she visited that guy Brian that was in Texas, and she went and visited their community and their small group, and she saw what it could look like. When they moved to the Pacific Northwest, they talked about how it had ripped a hole in their community and it was like devastating to lose them. And she had this moment of reflection of like, if I moved away, would it rip a hole in my community? Probably not. My community wouldn't even notice I was gone. Oh, yeah. And that's kind of a heartbreaking realization of like, I haven't invested in a network. So I lift right out,
I'm just completely replaceable.
And I just think, at our church, we're launching life groups this fall for the first time at this church. And they haven't had this kind of structure. It's a small church, so they're pretty interconnected into each other's lives. But I think, like, you really have to be intentional about this stuff. And it's really challenging. I'm hopeful. I have high hopes that it could really draw the church together because that's how you grow deeper. I think every church should have going beyond Sunday morning. Sunday morning's great. That's a good start. But to open yourself up to people's lives and to get into other people's lives. I've had multiple times just as a pastor where it's like, am I stepping across the boundary into your life?
Well, and it's different too, it's more than just getting into people's lives beyond just gossiping. Like that's
yeah.
not getting into people's lives. And I think sometimes people feel like that's connection enough. We just talked about our lives. And it's like, no, but being involved in, like, come over to my house for dinner. I'll go to your kid's sporting event, or hey, let's go camping together. Like more than just, hey, we hung out at church and then we did a Bible study together. But then I got together with this lady from my church and we had coffee one time where we just talked about everybody at church. And it's like, that's not really getting together with someone or becoming involved with them. That's very surface level. And it's not really going deeper to be in a Christian community. I feel like there's another layer there. So yeah, it's very...
Well, and I think that there's this Brian and Carrie, this family in Texas that she visited, she wondered aloud, because they all seem to be college buddies who stayed in the same town. And she's like, is this the only way to do it? Like, do you have to meet your bosom buddies at 23 and then just don't move away from them? And that was sort of their secret sauce. But there are intentional ways, like you and I have built incredible communities. We have been very transient. I hope that we're all done doing that. I'd love to stay where we are for a long time, but we lived in the UP, and then we lived over in Flint, and then we lived over in Saginaw, and we have built community in all those places. But it definitely takes intentional work and investment.
Yeah, that's true.
There's still some people who I'm so grateful that they reach out. They call me every now and then to check in. I just got a text message from a friend who I haven't talked to in months. I'll tell you about it later. But I was just checking in to see how you're doing. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's so good to hear from you.
It's nice to hear from people like that. Yeah, we have people like that from Flushing. Somebody like that from the UP just reached out to me the other day and said, hey, hope everything's well, And I was like, man, it's so good to hear from those people, because it's like those really were people that we built a community with. And honestly, I love so much that we could just hop back up there and just plug right back in and be like, this is intentional.
And it did involve being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
They see us at our worst, maybe not at our worst, but not at our prettiest.
Not the best,
you know? And we see them in the same.
Yep.
Like when somebody's in the hospital and you go visit them in the waiting room and they see you, after you've done some ugly crying or whatever, you didn't care about your hair or your, looking just right, or even saying the right things. When people start to express thoughts without their niceness filter around you, and it's like, oof, all right, I'm in it now.
Yep. Okay, we're gonna do this.
It can be really hard to let people in like that, but it's something worth fighting for.
It is, yeah. I agree. Yeah.
And I got really hopeful. I was convicted by some of her steps. She's like, I'm going to pencil in regular dates. And I'm like, you know what? I got probably 3 or 4 friends who I should pencil in monthly time with, and it's like, and I could. It wouldn't be hard. And it's like, well, I just set it up because otherwise it won't. And I guess it's a little weird to think about friendship that way, but it's like, yeah, but we'll drift if we don't get
even think about us. We're married, and we have to remember to still do date nights, because otherwise life just happens. It's that way with any relationship.
I think that's great.
That's true.
No, that totally makes sense. And so, anyways, I thought it was a wonderful article from Christianity Today. Sophia Lee. It's a long read, but it's very narrative. It's not boring at all, and it really pulled me in. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about it. Talk about community and emotional support parents.
Yes.
All right. Well, the kids are starting to go nuts, and this one is so cute. She woke up from her nap. Hi, baby girl. Yeah. Are you ready to send us out with a mom joke of the week?
I am.
What do you got?
What has 5 toes but isn't your foot?
My foot?
Yes. Bye.
Bye, everybody.